Hi everyone, we are Group 9 for gold mining industry and we are very glad to be here for the presentation. This is our member list. The content is above, and for the first part, Charlie and Tianzhi will give you a brief introduction about gold mining and gold exploration. Second part is about gold processing, which will be introduced by Wei Yuan and Qin Yue. Final part is about market and license, which will be for Zining, and my part is for discussion and conclusion.
Thanks, Jia. The first step of running a gold industry is exploration, which basically is finding the right place with sufficient gold to mine. This could start by doing some initial regional research, like conducting literature research on government website to access the geological information. This could also include analyzing remote sensing data. Methods include radiometrics, magnetics, and gravity. Can give us a look down several kilometers into the surface and tell us the area with potential gold reserves. Then followed by doing some field work such as sample collection and test drilling. Geologists can determine where is the best place for the company to mine. Once the engineer knows where contains plenty of gold, the mining process can begin. Gold exploration is a very challenging task because of its high initial investments. We need to make sure we have enough gold underground to be productive. Due to the volume of gold, mineral deposits contains as little as 0.2 parts per million can commercially exploited. However, the grain size of native gold can range from microscopic to macroscopic and can result in significant difficulties in accurately estimating the amount of gold. According to the World Gold Council, there is less than 0.1% of prospective sites lead to a productive mine. The possible solution could be conducting long-term and sound explorations to obtain more accurate estimate of the content of gold. This could be done with more sample collected. Also, the field workers need to be consistent with the ethical and professional standards to avoid fake data or totally wrong estimation. Next, my groupmate Tianzhi will talk about the mining process of the gold.
Thanks, Chuaning. I'm Tianzhi. When we finish the exploration, we need to start the mining. It's my part, but I'd like to ask a question at first. What does a gold mine look like? In fact, there are two main types of gold ores. One is native gold, the other is collaborate. The gold content is 100% and 39% respectively. Moving on to the source. Some of them extracted from the gold veins, some from placer. It's worth mentioning that due to the environmental protection factor, the placer production has further declined. In terms of gold veins, the underground mining is mostly used because of the thin veins. In particular, the manual operation is used in cutting and extracting. The principle is to improve the technology and reduce the waste. In terms of the gold placer, the surface mining is the mostly used because there are different mining machines. So the surface mining can be divided into different type of machine. There are some examples, and personally, the most interesting part of my presentation is the challenge. So I want to draw your attention to the challenge. Actually, in region containing gold, the small-scale mining has become the major source for the ore form income for local and macro miners. But Peluso states that the small-scale mining is accompanied with of human resources and natural resources and rules of government review. Secondly, follow the hill to mine the gold even have formed a way of life and community culture. So if community banned, it will lead to a social conflict. As shown in this figure, all forms of manual gold mine cause the enrichment with the tanning with mercury. Therefore, we do further research about those challenges, and we got some possible solution. This part, my teammate Jiao will give the introduction more specifically, and the next is Wei Yuan to talk about the processing.
Okay, thanks, Tianzhi. Let's move to the gold processing part. And here's the whole process, and me and Claire will introduce the gold processing stage from the liberation to the final product. So the first step of the gold processing would be the minerals rock is crushed by the jaw crushers and to ground in the large mills to create fine silt-like powder. However, in many ore plants, achieving the comminution targets would be a challenge, which due to the changing ore characteristics. One of the reasons is the work index of the ore would be increased by the dip, and also it shows that the installed energy would be reduced by the dip, and the time required for the comminution would be lower than the required targets. So that's one of the reasons for the cross grinding, and also that will lead to the reduction in the manual liberation with the reduction in leaching efficiency. Therefore, there are some strategies developed to address the problems to increasing work index. For instance, blending ores of different mechanical strengths and also boosting the specific energy during the blasting might be the possible solution. So the second stage of the gold processing might be the separation of and also the recovery. So the gold minerals are separated from the other materials by the process called the flotation, which make use of the surface properties and also make use of the hydrophobicity. And also the pressure oxidant would be the next process to oxidize the gold barren materials. So the oxidized material would be mixed with a cyanide solution, and this dissolved gold would be collected onto the active carbon, and on the other side, the cyanide solution would also be sent to the cyanide dioxide unit. And finally, the active carbon, which exhibit a high and strong affinity for the extraction of the gold from the cyanide solution. These procedures would require for the other gold, which could be recovered from the further procedures. So Xingyue would introduce the next processing for us.
Thank you, Meiyuan. The electroning process is a process that recovers the gold from concentrated solution by applying a voltage across the electrodes immersed in the concentrated solution. In cyanide solution, gold is presented as a stable aryl cyanide anion with a relatively high cathodic potential. At the refining stage, gold particles are heated in furnace to a temperature of 1064 degrees Celsius, which is the melting point of gold. The heating process burns the most of the impurities. The melting gold is eventually casted to gold bars. There are typically 3 types of gold bars: the large cast bars, small cast bars, and the long flat cast bars. Finally, after recovering the gold from ore, the remaining slurry is disposed to the tailings dam. Waste rock from the mine is used to build the dam, retaining the toxic slurry in a pond where solids settles and compact. One main disadvantage of the traditional gold processing method is that it generally uses the toxic chemical cyanide or mercury as reagent to extract gold particles from the ore solution, exposing the environment and the miners to the toxic waste and gases. To encounter this challenge, a cleaner processing can be introduced. It involves the usage of an inorganic compound, thiosulfate, in place of toxic chemical cyanide or mercury. Unlike cyanide-based methods traditionally used, this technology doesn't require the addition of acids, lime, chlorine, or pressure vessels. It uses thiosulfate in conjunction with innovative plant technology to achieve gold extraction. The setup process is also simple and eliminates the number of consultants needed. However, the limitation lies on this approach is that the chemistry involved in the thiosulfate leaching process is more complex and less robust than the cyanide leaching process. Thiosulfate leaching is a sensitive process that requires optimization of the chemical components of the leaching reaction, as well as physical parameters such as pulp density, temperature to maximize the gold recovery and the reagent and minimize the reagent losses. Now I'll pass time to Zining to talk about the market and licensing.
Thank you, Xingyue. So the next part is market and license. Well, as you can see from the time graph, most of gold become
jewelry, and about 10% of them becoming electronic equipment. Only 3% of gold are used in payment method. And you can see the gold price is soaring up after some widely affected international events, especially since 2000. And the profit margin of gold is quite large. If you say last year you can earn $800 for per ounce, and if you compare it with the price, you will find that the profit margin of gold is nearly 100%. It's very large. So although the profit margin of gold is quite large, it's not easy to enter this sector. Although every country has their own laws, it's basically gold belongs to the country where they located. So if a company wants to mine in a country, they have to get a license from local government. Those governments will reveal the technical and financial standing of these companies and their abilities to manage the whole process of mining. Only companies reach the standard can get the license, and the license usually contains the specified region and a time period. Another important thing for companies to think about is how to get support from local people, because the gold mining is quite a large scale and often contains many toxic steps. So many people are not willing to. There is a gold mine near their home. For example, in UK, there is a prospect mine in College Hill Net. Yes, that mine incurs serious objections. So that's very considerable for these companies to think about a win-win solution for better development. Thank you.
Well, thanks for Zinin's presentation about the market. Now it's the final part about the decision and conclusion. First, let's move to discussion about gold mining process. There are several benefits for gold mining process, like proven technique, confirmed process, and also the gold is quite important in market with its higher price. However, there are some drawbacks of this process. First, we need to consider if it's an environmental friendly process and it also helps for co-workers. Also, we need to consider about the communications of the social support. I will give you a brief introduction about the most important challenge we need to face now. First one is about the gold mine collapse. Second one is about the pollution. Well, as you can see, there are two serious accidents in nowadays. The first one is about in 2020, the Congo mine collapse, and the second one is Guinea gold mine collapse in 2021. However, why this happened? Most of the accidents happened in informal mines because of maybe a lack of the management and risk assessment, the government support, and maybe the gap between the rich and the poor is also a quite serious problem. The solution to this question is pretty simple. We need to improve the government management, and we need to have great infrastructures, and also the financial support like bank and other citizens is also important. Another challenge is about pollution. As we mentioned in the process, the traditional process is using mercury and using sulfur to the purification process. However, to deal with this problem, then we need to use some clean gold mining method to slow it, and it's also a friendly process. Conclusion part is quite simple. As you can see, gold is quite important cargo in the overall world market, and the mining process is quite mature. However, with some problems like pollution, health, and sustainability. And also, there are still some challenges we need to consider about, like the illegal mine and also the sustainability. But we believe that within the improvement of technology, gold mining tends to be a safer process with a higher efficiency and sustainability. That's all. Thanks for listening. This is our reference list.